Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to take a second to make a video to talk about two things. First of all, I wanted to give an update on what is going on with the Phoenix real estate market in light of the coronavirus. And number two, I wanted to talk a little bit about what actually happened in 2008 and how this is nothing like what happened then, because there seems to be a little confusion between the two. So number one, let's talk about 2008. If you were paying attention around then, what happened was largely fueled by the loans and subprime mortgage industry, as well as the housing market. So all of that is really what created the financial crisis. And what happened was banks were giving out loans to people that really couldn't qualify, and definitely couldn't qualify by today's standards. You could get a loan for a mortgage even if you didn't have any verifiable income and if you didn't have any money for a down payment. And it doesn't take a genius to know that that's probably a bad idea, because when you have to start paying your mortgage and you don't have a job, how are you going to pay your mortgage payment? That's exactly what happened. All of these folks who bought homes that they couldn't afford ended up defaulting on their loan, and their home was foreclosed on. When a foreclosure takes place, the bank owns the house and the bank has to sell the house to get their money back. These banks were selling so many homes because there were so many foreclosures, and all of a sudden we had an issue because our supply was so much larger than our demand. No one could buy the number of houses that were for sale. And what happens when there is no demand? Prices tank. And that's exactly what happened. Home prices basically fell off a cliff when our demand fell off a cliff. And then the folks that were actually paying their mortgages, their home values went in the toilet. And they were pissed because they were now paying mortgages for homes that were worth less than their mortgage payment. And many of those folks said, screw this, I'm just gonna walk away. And they did. And long story short, we had a big issue that then turned into more issues and finally had some recovery years down the road. The housing market has been recovering ever since. We've been on a steady increase in our appreciation and in our pricing, and have been at a really great place the last few years. But that's what happened in 2008. And clearly that's not what's happening right now. Right now we have a worldwide pandemic that is making our markets go haywire. We have a lot of folks that are out of work right now. We have quarantines across the world and across the country, and mortgage rates all over the place, stock market all over the place, and some uncertainty on what is actually going to happen with the economy. And at the bottom of all of this, there could be some underlying issues, but at the same time, this is not fueled by the housing market. It will certainly have some sort of effect on the housing market, but not really sure yet what that will be. Now, to talk specifically about what's going on in the Phoenix metro housing market, there's a few things that I can share with you. One is that our number of homes that are temporarily off the market increased by 5.8% over the last week. This makes perfect sense, right? If you're selling your home and all of a sudden there's a worldwide pandemic of a virus, you do not want people walking through your house and potentially spreading it to you and your family. So many people took their homes off the market temporarily to see what happens, and will likely relist when all of this gets past us. The other indication that we can look at is the number of listings that are under contract. At the moment, that number has not grown over the last week. Typically, we see a lot of growth between the number of listings under contract starting from February to March. We typically see about a 3% increase during that time period. This number has stayed stable, so we have not added any new listings under contract significantly in the last week. So that makes sense again too. Maybe some folks were going to be writing an offer and moving forward with a contract and decided not to because of the uncertainty with the coronavirus. Those are two things that we want to keep track of because they will help provide an indication of what's to come. At the moment, prices are still in an upward trajectory. It may be too soon to tell if that's going to change, but as long as we don't lose demand for housing, those prices are going to continue to increase. So that'll be another thing to track and hopefully get some sort of idea of where we're headed as it relates to the housing market. One other thing that I want to mention is that Arizona has such a high migration number and we are such a desirable place to live that I really don't see us getting impacted all that much by a change in housing. I think our demand is really going to be there and hopefully that helps us stay somewhat stable as all of this takes place. One thing to keep in mind too is while the stock market and the economy is going haywire, the only stable thing at the moment is actually the housing market. So it's kind of funny how this is completely different than it was in 2008, obviously fueled by something different, but at the moment we have a very stable and steady as a rock housing market. And we'll see what happens. The only way to figure out what's going to happen is to continue to track this information on a daily basis and hopefully start to get some idea of where we're headed. I hope all of that's really helpful to you. I will continue to track this and share what I know as time goes on. But as you're out there right now, just be sure to stay safe, kind of take a little bit of a mental, emotional break if you can, spend time with your family, do all the right things to keep yourself healthy, and don't lose faith that everything will get back on track. If you have any questions for me, you can always reach out, and as I said, I will continue to share information as I know it. So I hope everybody has a great weekend.